Hello, I'm Mary Hickey, and I'm here today to show you how to make flying geese in a very fast and accurate way. As you know, a flying geese unit is a rectangle made of 3 triangles, and it has the straight grain on the outside edges and diagonal or bias seams in it. It's one of the most important building blocks in quilt making, so it'll be great to have a way of making them rapidly and accurately. As you know, a flying geese unit is made of 3 triangles. It's a rectangle composed of 3 triangles. The outer edges of the rectangle have straight grain on the edges, and the seams are sewn on the diagonal or the bias edges. Since it's a basic building block of all of quilt making, it will be very useful for you to have a fast, accurate way of making large numbers of them. Here's a good example of a slightly smaller flying geese unit in the vanishing star block. And if you look carefully, you can see that we also have a flying geese unit here with a red background and white triangles, and then little tiny ones here in the vanishing star itself. So it will be great fun to have a way of making so many of these quickly. Here's another example of a little bit simpler star. Another great example of a good use of flying geese units can be seen in this wonderful wild goose chase quilt. As you know, straight grain is very important in all of sewing. We always try to have straight grain on the outside of pieces, and the bias grain runs diagonally between the 2 straight grains. Most long rulers have a 45-degree angle line on them. This ruler has one in the middle as well as one at this end. So I'm going to slide this one right to the edges of the fabric, and that gives me straight grain on the outside of the pieces and a perfect diagonal line on which to cut bias strips. Now we want to make our flying geese unit out of 3 fabrics because we have 3 fabrics in each unit. So I'll layer 3 fabrics, one on top of the other, on my cutting mat, and using the 45-degree angle line as a guide, I'll cut right through the corner of the fabrics. Release my rotary cutter and roll the rotary cutter away from me right up to the corner of the fabrics. Then move my rotary cutter 3 inches to the right. I lay the 3-inch line right on the cut edge of the fabric and cut another set of strips, 3 strips in every cut, 2 whites and 1 pink. And each time I cut, I'm cutting a set of strips that I will sew together into a strip unit and use to make our flying geese units. So we take the bias cut strips, arrange them in a strip unit, and sew along the long bias edges. After I've sewn the strips together, I actually take the time to press that long seam open because this will reduce bulk when we're making our flying geese units. I place my ruler on the sewn set of strips, and I put one of the straight lines of the ruler right on my sewn seam line. And I slide the ruler to the right until I have the least amount of waste on the right possible. I cut carefully on the right-hand side of the ruler, move it out of the way, slide my strip unit around so I can cut on the right-hand side. I lay the ruler back down on here, and because I cut the strips 3 inches wide, I cut segments from this that are also 3 inches wide. Each time I cut them, I make sure that the inch lines on the ruler are right on the seam line, so I know I'm getting a good square cut. And I continue down the strip unit, cutting 3-inch segments each time. Now, after we've cut the segments, we're going to stitch them together into what's called a Seminole strip. And to do that, we offset the top seam of one segment and place it next to the bottom seam of the first segment. And we continue down the strips, the segments, creating a Seminole unit, sewing them together, and creating a long strip that looks like this. After I've sewn the segments together into a Seminole strip, I actually take the time to press these seams open because, again, I want to reduce bulk wherever I can. There's 3 pieces of fabric coming together here, so we need to have as little bulk as possible. Then I take this Seminole strip, lay it on my mat board, and place my ruler back on the set of strips with the 1/4 inch line of the ruler right on the V where the 3 fabrics come together. Now you can see that I have the 1/4 inch line right on the tip of that red diamond, right where it meets up with the 2 white pieces. I'm careful to make sure that I have the 1/4 inch line right on the point of every red diamond, and then using my rotary cutter, I come along and cut off those triangles, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance for every Flying Geese unit. I'll remove my ruler, turn the strip unit around, place the ruler back on the strip unit, again putting the 1/4 inch line right on the V, the point where the diamond meets up with the white squares. And using my rotary cutter, I come along and cut off the white triangles on the other side of the Seminole strip unit and remove the triangles. So I'm left with a beautiful strip unit that has exactly a 1/4 inch left for seam allowance on the edge of each red diamond. Now this is where the magic really starts. I put the ruler back on the strip unit, and this time I put the edge of the ruler coming right through the points of all the red squares. And I cut right up the middle of this strip unit, using a fair amount of pressure to make sure that I cut right through every one of those spots. I move the ruler back out of the way, set one group aside, and I'm ready for the last step. I lay the ruler down, again with a straight inch line right on the edge of the cut fabric, and with the side of the ruler coming right through the V where the white fabric meets up with the red. And I cut on the right hand side. I slide the ruler to the left and again put the side of the ruler right where the 2 fabrics come together and cut again. And I just continue down the strip unit, cutting on the right hand side each time, lining up the straight line of the ruler with the straight cut line of the strip unit, and I just continue cutting on the right hand side, creating perfect little Flying Geese units, each one 3.5 inches long by 2 inches high. So just from those first 3 strips that we sewed together, we wind up with 10 perfect Flying Geese units.